Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts family.
Hello there, welcome back.
So we've been trying to give you guys littler, smaller nibbles, so to speak. And yesterday we did one on Patreon only, which I think is very important for people to get a clear picture of what is underway and what's coming. Islamic Jihad, holy war coming to everyone's home. It wasn't my words, but it was stated in New York City. And there was a huge crowd that seemed to be very, very supportive of it. So I encourage everyone, if you are able to, come join us on Patreon. Again, unique videos for as little as $1 a month. And then when you actually pay for a year in advance, it breaks down to something like 90 cents a month. It does support the channel, and we do appreciate you guys joining us over there.
Indeed, thank you.
And of course, we're putting up videos on Evolutionary and EEARTS, as well as the newest Heart's Own Evolutionary and EEARTS. We're sharing a lot of the news and going deep into the spiritual side of things as well. So this was curious. Now, I mentioned it really briefly yesterday that there was a small tsunami. There had been some quakes in this relative area, but scientists are not sure what caused the tsunami because the quakes in the area really should not have caused the tsunami. Oh, I think this could be a sign of something very, very different. So what they're saying is quake, magma, is there a volcano there? Sassy says, no, I don't think it's a volcano. I don't discount the possibility. There's going to be a lot of new land forming. There's going to be a lot of earth changes that come, and we've talked about how it seems that whenever there's all sorts of war and chaos and just travail, emotional duress upon the planet, that it increases the quote-unquote natural earth changes and the natural disasters. But yet we know the weather is already used for warfare. That's a given. It's been stated openly. There's been declassified documents showing weather control and modification. There's been so many satellites shot up into space. Absolutely, there's technology in play here. So what about this one then? This really hits me as curious. Scientists remain puzzled over what caused the tsunami that was observed over a wider part of Japan October 9th. Normally, the Japan Meteorological Agency will issue a tsunami advisory within 3 minutes of an earthquake if a wave of at least 20 centimeters is expected. But the advisory issued on October 9th came after the tsunami was spotted in various areas. By 9:30 a.m., tsunami ranging between 60 and 30 centimeters had reached the Izu Island chain, as well as Kochi Prefecture on the main island of Shikoku. According to the JMA, they admitted they could not pinpoint the magnitude of the earthquake that likely triggered the tsunami, and so they remain puzzled. Well, what if it wasn't natural? What if it was something that was a test? Yeah, and that gets me thinking of tests that happened off the coast of Florida. 3 times, in fact. 3 times. Experimental explosions prompt earthquake off of Florida's coast. This particular instance is June 21st, 2021. There was 3 times, and all 3 times they registered 3.9 on the Richter scale. Now, the official explanation was it was hull testing of new Navy ships. I don't buy it, and Cindy didn't buy it at all. When we look to what has been put out there openly by news agencies and even by people in positions of authority, military authority, the reality of what we would call a tsunami bomb is very real. In fact, many people are not aware that there were people in the U.S. military that did not want to develop nuclear weapons. The backup option was creating a tsunami bomb that would inundate Japan and force the people to surrender. Yeah, and not only was that a theoretical option, they actually made tsunami bombs and tested them in the South Pacific. Ah, that's interesting, is it not? And here we have another nuclear threat to the UK from Russian state TV's Dmitry Kiselov. He says the country's Poseidon nuclear underwater drone could cause a tsunami that would plunge the British Isles into the depths of the sea and turn them into a radioactive desert. This was from May 1st, 2022. Now, this has been brought up numerous times. I did want to share this too. And the question here is this coming to a city near you? What would you do? I think that what will happen first is a softening up. But and exactly this is what the some of those people that are coming over the border illegally and have been here for, in some cases, years, some cases, generations. This whole plan was hatched a very, very long time ago. And this is exactly what I've seen in multiple areas around the U.S. in the visions that the guides have given me going back. Well, visions like this I've seen since about 2007, as that's when I started to get more details as we got closer. And just a couple of nights ago, this was exactly what I was seeing in the U.S. And, I'm not sure where the location was, although it felt to me like the Southwest that I was seeing, but it could be anywhere. And I have seen that in the South, in Florida. I do think that some troops will be landed that way in Florida. And so we have this article from Forbes talking about how Russia just threatened to destroy Ireland and Britain with a nuclear tsunami. Russia's testing nuclear torpedo in the Arctic. By the way, we had a military presence up in the Arctic for a very long time, and just recently, and it's still up in that area, as Russia is up there too. And will they have the power to trigger radioactive tsunamis off the U.S. coast? Yeah, I do think this is exactly a first wave of sorts that will leave people perplexed, not knowing exactly what, and I'm on record saying this going back to 2017, 2018, not knowing whether it's natural or is this really an attack. And that's what makes this type of attack so devastating, is because there will be some sort of pause. And of course, at the highest levels, all the governments really understand the bigger picture at the very highest level. And then we have Alois Irlmaier, and somebody said, who was that prophet? Well, Alois Irlmaier is the one I was mentioning, but there's another whole video we're going to do on a specific portion of his prophecy of World War III that aligns perfectly with Nostradamus. And I don't know why I didn't notice that years ago, but they do go perfectly together. And the reason we bring him up is because he's somebody that Cindy has been able to get in contact with. And so we've been able to utilize him as a guide, so to speak. And, of course, he's on the other side. He's not allowed to give us, clear, detailed info, but we can pick up little tidbits from him. And he did speak of this period that we're now entering in great detail, and giving you a background on him. He was utilized by the military because he gave his prophecy of this vision in 1959, and he wasn't with us much after that. But in World War II, he was able to predict where Nazi Germany was going to bomb and help people in the UK get to safety, leave some areas, look for shelter in other areas. He was also utilized by the police to find missing people and help solve murders. He was a gifted psychic and gifted dowser as well, as he had this natural ability to find bodies of water with dowsing, for those of you that are familiar with that art. So one of the things that he states is that the war really starts, truly, when it's harvest time. And now, again, he is Eurocentric, as, this is where he lived. He lived in Europe, and most of his visions were taking into account the entirety of the globe, but they were a little bit more Eurocentric because, again, that's where he was located. And we have a tendency to be wondering what's happening in my area.
Indeed.
That's just a kind of a given. So he gives it as harvest time, which is basically now. He talks about, it seeming to be not cold, but cool. It feels like fall. It feels like harvest time. And he says the war starts suddenly in the Middle East at a time that, it just, everything kind of fits the bill right now. As we talked about before, he talked about 3 different assassinations, and perhaps Prigozhin is the first one. But the last one happens in the Balkans, in the area of perhaps Serbia, Kosovo, which is really tense at this point in time again, too. And so three assassinations increase the tension. And then right after that third assassination, which looks like it happens at the hand of a migrant from Africa, boom, it's immediately on. And what happens, he describes a lot of the chaos, but he also says that when Russia goes, they really go, and they roll fast. They roll right through. So I do think Ukraine, it hasn't been that Russia's bogged down in Ukraine. It's been that, again, the purpose is to deplete ammunition, deplete resources, and to set up everything else into play. Ukraine, they truly, if you really watched what happened, they started to take the whole thing over, and then they stopped. And some will say, well, they met stiff resistance, and NATO was feeding them. The whole purpose, again, is to deplete it so that when the direct attack comes on NATO itself, especially the U.S., as the U.S. is the strongest country, it will not be able to respond accordingly. And again, we have 17 days of oil reserves, and we have about a week worth of ammo. And now we're going to be shipping, and I've talked about that too, look for them to start another front somewhere that's going to deplete resources even more. Well, now we're sending billions to Israel, and it's probably already there or en route. And yeah, obviously, if Taiwan starts up, then that's another spot. And so we are stretched so thin, and what happens is they roll right through all of Eastern Europe and right up into Germany. And then we'll get into detail in the other video as to what actually kind of puts a halt on things. He does talk about the 3 days of darkness, and we've talked about that in other videos too. But what I wanted to cover in this one is exactly what we've been talking about, the tsunami bomb theory. So he talks about seeing planes coming from the east. He also says it's on the eastern side that really makes the big strike first. So in other words, the strike is coming from the BRICS nations, which again is something that Nostradamus talks about. He says from the east will come the dreadful act. So there's a big surprise attack that comes from the BRICS nations, the east. And so covering this, when I read this is like, and I've read this before many times, but sometimes, it takes other things to all get them to click in your mind. He says, I see someone flying, coming from the east, who drops something into large water. so that something strange will happen, he says. Something strange will happen. The water lifts itself as high as a tower and falls down. Then everything is inundated. Everything is flooded. So this hits him as so strange. He has no concept of a tsunami bomb. There is an earthquake, and half the big island will sink. The whole action will not last long. I see 3 lines. So now Cindy could tell more about this. I see 3 lines, 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. I don't know exactly, but it won't last long. So, isn't this interesting? Again, sometimes they give you symbols.
Yeah, I mean, is that the yellow lines that we were talking about last night?
No, that's going to be something.
That's something different.
We're gonna talk about the yellow line later in another video. Just because I wanted to focus on the tsunami bomb aspect of this, but just the symbolic nature of things. Like they've shown you different animals, birds. They've shown you. I mean, remember when they were showing you the bear creeping towards? So again, and that's obviously symbolism of Russia. When you see a lot of like the symbols from, the book of Daniel and stuff, and you see the symbology, that is how a lot of things come through. And sometimes, though, they're very clear and they're spoken as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, it depends on what kind of information they're trying to push through and your perception. It's like the guides come in and they learn how to work with you. They learn, it is like a game of charades on both parts. Because you have to translate with your own frequency. But, as I'm looking at this, I know it could be several different areas. You just never know where these things could happen. But I keep getting these ideas of New York coming in. It just keeps coming in over and over and over. And so many people I know that the channel, usually that's means something. You keep getting the same information over and over and over. That has some weight to it, and then I'm also looking at these 3 days of darkness, and I've had visions of those, and with myself giving instruction as far as what to do, and putting plastic black garbage bags, taping the windows, and I don't know if this is it for sure, but it sounds similar to what I've been given instruction to tell people to do. We even have family members that are thoughtful enough, they go out and they get their dogs, indoor grass, and because the animals won't be able to go outside either, they need a place to go to the bathroom. So there's always a certain amount of preparation involved, and you may or may not meet those preparations. Honestly, with Mike and I, we prepare, but then when something happens, I think it happens to everyone, your heart kind of sinks. Your stomach sinks because you realize you're never, ever quite ready enough for this stuff. And that's where we always come in with the spiritual practice to lean in on.
So he goes on, a single airplane which comes from the east throws something into the large water. Then the water lifts itself as high as a tower and falls down. Everything is inundated. There is an earthquake. The southern part of England slips into the water. 3 large cities will be ruined. 1 will be destroyed by the water. The second is located so high in the sea you can only see the church tower, and the third falls in. 1 part of England disappears when the thing falls into the sea, which the pilot drops. Then the water lifts itself as high as a tower and it falls down. What the thing is, I do not know. The countries at the sea are endangered of the water heavily. The sea is very unrest. The waves go as high as a house. It foams as if it would boil in the ground. Islands disappear and the climate changes. Part of the proud island sinks as if the thing falls into the sea, which the pilot drops. Then the water lifts itself as high as a tower and falls down. What this thing is, I do not know. When it comes, I do not know. The January will be so warm at some time that mosquitoes will dance. It will be that we already came into a time when there won't be normal winter at all, like we do know him now. So he's speaking in a different language, and when you listen to the translation, there is a little bit of a disjointedness in the English. I believe he was speaking in German. During the war, the big darkness comes, which lasts 72 hours. It will become dark at a day during the war. Then a hail impact consisting of lightning and thunder breaks out, and an earthquake vibrates the earth. Please do not go out of the house at that time. The lights do not burn except candlelight. The current stops. Now, I wonder if he is meaning the Amorc, the Atlantic current that keeps everything, relatively warm. Who inhales the dust, gets a cramp, and dies. Do not open the windows. Cover it completely with black paper. All open standing water becomes poisonous, and also open standing meals, which are not locked doses. Also, no meals in glasses because they would not cover it up completely. Outside, the death by dust goes round. Many humans die. After 72 hours, everything is over. But again, do not go out of the house. Do not look out of the windows, and keep the candlelight burning and pray overnight. There will die more humans than in 2 world wars before. Do not open a window during the 72 hours. The rivers will have so few water that you can easily pass them. The cattle falls. The grass becomes yellow and dry. The dead humans will become quite yellow and black. The wind drives the clouds of death off to the east. The city with the iron tower becomes the victim of its own people. They ignite everything. Revolution is, and everything is going wildly. The islands before the coast sink because the water is quite wild. I see large holes in the sea which will be filled when the enormous waves return. The beautiful city at the blue sea sinks almost completely into the sea, and the dirt and the sand which the sea ejects. I see 3 cities sinking in the south, in the northwest, and the west. The large city with the high iron tower is on fire. That sounds like Paris. Again, he spoke of revolution in France, revolution in Russia. But this has been done by the own people, not by those which came from the east. And I could see that the city is made equal to the ground. And in Italy, too, it's going wildly, too. They kill many people there, and the Pope flees. Nostradamus talked about that, too. But many clergymen will be killed. Many churches collapse. In Russia, revolution breaks out and civil war. The corpses are so much you cannot remove them off the roads anymore. The cross comes to honors anew. The Russian people believe in God anew. The ones among the party leaders commit suicide, and the great guilt is washed off. I see a red mass mixed with yellow faces, and it is a general riot and horrible killing. Then they sing the Easter song and burn candles in front of sacred pictures. By the prayer of the Christianity, the monster of hell dies, and young people believe anew in the intercession of God's mother. So he was he was definitely Christian in life, and now he has a little different picture from being from the other side. But it does go into the fleeing of the Pope and everything, and that's exactly also what Nostradamus had spoken of. Basically, we can talk about this, but I'll do another video specifically talking about this powdery substance, because Nostradamus also talks about this powdery substance, and then Cindy was getting visions confirming a powdery substance. And so the only thing that stops the westward movement of the troops coming from the east, from Russia, probably also supplemented by China and North Korea and Iran and many other nations, and there will be also an Islamic movement as well, is what looks to be some sort of chemical warfare. There is also biological warfare that happens, and chemical warfare and the biological warfare claim so many lives. These are obviously just atrocious horrors. So he sees the earth like a ball before him, on whom the white pigeons fly near, a very large number coming up from the sand. Then it rains dust in a line, When the golden city is destroyed, it begins like a yellow line. It goes up to the city and the bay. It will be a clear night when they begin to throw it. The tanks are still driving, but those who sit in the tanks become quite black. Where it falls down, everything will be dead. No tree, no bush, no cattle, no grass. This becomes withered and black. The houses still exist. I don't know what it is. I cannot tell it. It's a long line. It literally stretches from the Black Sea, which is where we have Crimea and all the activity. Ukraine is on the north of the Black Sea. Numerous countries are on the Black Sea, including Turkey to the south. Russia itself is on the Black Sea. And up to the North Sea. This is a huge portion of Europe that they drop this all the way across. So it's like this huge dividing line to stop the advance, so all of Europe is not overtaken by the armies from the east, and the Russian supply line is interrupted. It says as wide as half of Bavaria. In this zone, no more grass can grow, let alone humans live. So this totally stops the movement of the troops and everything any farther westward, but at a huge cost. And again, it not just him, but Nostradamus had this vision. And then I asked Cindy, what do you pick up about this yellow powder?
All right, with the yellow powder, this is some really nasty stuff. I was curious because they were showing me it in granules first, and then showing me that the granules, they are absorbing. They're like absorbing everything around them, and they're changing it and they're turning it. You know, this includes, I mean, our water, any ground, any animal, anything. It's like the substance that eats or it causes decay. It's really nasty stuff. So that's the information that was coming out when I was looking at this. We were looking at it last night. That really came to the forefront. I didn't like it. It was very uncomfortable. And I gotta say, I feel very sorry for Alois because he was really a brilliant channel, and I think he was highly misunderstood. He also has a soul stream lineage with Nostradamus, so his psychic abilities are very pronounced. They're very strong. They're very good, but also there's a problem with channeling. When you see the information, it's not like you can see timestamps on anything. You just see it, because in that dimension, he's looking at it from another dimension or into another dimension. You don't see calendar days. Normally, they don't put numbers. That's not how they speak, but he did see very vividly, and I feel bad for him because he was very lonely and he was very, very misunderstood when he was just trying to get the information out so people could prepare to the best of their ability. And like I said, there is no being fully prepared. So, but what can you do? You strengthen that soul. You strengthen yourself. You get yourself so you're not reliant on the system. You don't have to go to the store, things of that nature. There's a lot that can be done. But yeah, that yellow stuff, it is nasty. It just sits there and it just kind of eats all the way into a cancer, and it decays wherever it eats. I didn't like it.
And to give you an idea again, this is the North Sea here. This is the Black Sea here. So he says that it's laid in a line between these. And so this is done to stop the advance. It's interesting too that as we spoke of, there are so many migrants coming through here, coming in right now. These are the advanced guards, so to speak. That are coming in to cause havoc behind the lines as the military will move across. And then I do also expect them to push in through Turkey, mostly with a unified Islamic front, which Israel is giving the unity to that Islamic front right now by the attack on Gaza. So the more atrocious the attack on Gaza is, the more it's going to stir up those of Islam, and these different countries will unite in order to, eliminate Israel. But it won't stop there because, it's a bigger picture. It's a global jihad, and jihad means holy war. And of course, no war could ever be holy. So, I wanted to share these things with you guys. Yeah, he does say the war does not last long. It really, really doesn't last so long, but it's really intense. And again, it's worse than World War One and Two combined in a much smaller area of time. I do think again that when they do use the tsunami bombs, I think that the plan is to use them on the coastlines of the U.S. as well. And we have seen the guides gave us 1.5 years in a vision back December of 2022, and so that's going to bring us up to June of 2024, and now about 8 months away. And we saw volcanoes going off, and it looked and felt like the Pacific Northwest, anywhere from California up into, say, British Columbia. And we saw troops there and war going on and battle going on at that time. So, we've talked about these prophecies numerous times in other videos. And we'll go into depth looking at the specifically the prophecies of this yellow powder material. Again, it makes me wonder if it's some form of modified agent, like, we're aware of mustard gas and the like, but, could there be something that they've amplified and made way more toxic than anything that's been used in the past? The answer is obviously. After Wuhan and everything, we understand the bigger picture. But then again, it's over relatively quickly. And interestingly enough, the climate has changed. And interesting enough, also up in the area of Germany and the like, it is much more semi-tropical than it is at this point in time. And it's interesting too, because we've had visions of where we are, and it does seem like it is much more lush and even more semi-tropical, tropical than it is at this point in time. So yes, there will be very large earth changes going on. So I'll give you guys all these links. One of the things he also spoke of was when it starts, when it really, really starts, there's a large naval buildup in the Mediterranean and over to the eastern side, close to Israel and all, which we see the Gerald R. Ford here. And this is from last week. They didn't upload a new one like they usually do on Mondays. This is moving over in that direction as we speak. USS Mesa Verde, I'm curious to see if this is going to be heading over there. The Healy is what we had said. The Healy was up over here off of north of Alaska and Canada, and it made its way over to Norway now. Again, this looks like a forward position, expecting a war in Europe or the Middle East, just from my personal opinion, and that's just from 7 or 8 years of following this mostly daily. So I wanted to share all this with you guys in a small enough video that we don't lose your attention. And we will delve into other aspects and other prophecies, as well as what we get from the guides and videos to come.
Source blessed. Namaste.
Stay prepared out there, guys. Much love. Source bless. Namaste.